Can an avoidant man speak my love language? Well, the simple answer is it depends. I think it depends on a lot of factors. And today we're going to dive into some critical things that might help you in your future relationships. So, first off, we're going to explore what love attachment style is. Love attachment style. And if you're not familiar with two books, I highly recommend checking them out. All the books I recommend are in the link below. Okay, under Jonathan Recommend Books. But I want you to check out the book, this one, Attached by Amir Levine and Rachel Heller, and this book, Wired for Love by Stan Tatkin, Dr. Stan Tatkin, who recently came on my channel. Why it's important to understand love attachment style. And there's basically three types of love attachment styles, and there's subtypes within each type. But there's what's known as an anxious love attachment style, there's an avoidant attachment style, and then there are secure attachment styles. And oftentimes when we believe we are in love with another human being, it's actually something that happened deep in our early stages of upbringing, in our childhood, how we attached to another human being. I'm going to give you the Cliff Note version of this, but for some children, they attached in what's known as an anxious way, in a very needy way, with either one or both of their parents or any caretaker that was in their life early on. Okay. Then other children attached in what's known as an avoidant way. Okay. Which means that they struggled attaching to one or both of their parents or those that raised them. Okay. Now, secure means that they have a healthy attachment to another human being. Now, again, I'm giving you the Cliff Note version. I highly recommend checking out the links below to the books I recommend called Attached by Amir Levine, Rachel Heller, the books Wired for Love by Dr. Stan Tatkin. Okay, so I'm just giving you the Cliff Note version of attachment style. If you know your attachment style, I'd like you to post it in the comments below, or if you're watching the live stream, I'd like you to post it in the chat. Now, I want to be candid with everyone. I am an anxious attachment style. What that means is I oftentimes can be very needy in relationship. I can need lots of validation. I need constant communication. I have a need for closeness. I dislike being alone. I want constant communication. So I am probably an anxious attachment style. Now, I want you to know something. I have healed tremendously over the years from where I was, say, 20 years ago, whereas I am today. And with each relationship I've had, or at least encounter with a person in the dating, mating, or relating realm, I have been slowly healing my attachment style, and I'm probably very close to being a secure attachment style. Now, avoidance, they fear being controlled. They have difficulty showing emotions. They're sensitive to criticism. They have low self-worth. Okay. By the way, those anxious attachment style, fear of abandonment, hates being alone, also has a low self-worth associated with them. The reality is most humans are suffering from some way, shape, or form, feeling not good enough, not lovable, and not likable. In fact, 60 Minutes just did an expose on this, saying we are in an emotional health crisis here in the United States. And what's interesting is dating triggers these wounds like nobody's business. The simple act of interacting with another human being can cause tremendous anxiety. Now, I'll get into the love languages in a moment, but I want to give you an example of how this anxiety might manifest itself, and tell me if you have experienced the same for yourself. So the other day, my son came to visit me, and we were talking about dating, and he mentioned that he's back on the dating apps, and he was on Hinge. And if those of you that are familiar with Hinge, Hinge is an app. It's a swipe app that we can use for our phones. And he showed me his, and I was scrolling through, and I go, wow, that girl is really cute. We should hit yes on it. And he goes, yeah, I agree, Dad. And so let me reframe girl, a young woman, because she was over 21 years old. Okay. Young woman. And she had a prompt on hers is something like, tell me something fake about yourself was the prompt. So So he started to share how he should respond to her. And I said, no, that's a terrible idea. And then I suggested how he should respond to her. And he goes, oh, that's a terrible idea. And this went on for 10 minutes. And it got to the point where we literally said, fuck it. This is too complicated. Simply responding to something created so much frustration, anguish, and anxiety for us both. Have any of you felt the same way when it comes to dating apps? How we should respond? There are all these coaches that will tell you when they say this, you should say this. And when they say this, you should say this. And when you should say this, they should say this. And I'm like, oh my God, do you realize how effing complicated it is to communicate with another human being? I shared with him something I once wrote to a woman. He goes, Dad, it was all about you. And I'm like, really? I didn't see it that way. I thought I was just being inquisitive. And it's interesting how his perspective, and I've shared things with women that I've wrote, and they're like, no, Jonathan, that wasn't a good idea. And I've shared things with women, they go, oh my God, that's a great idea, but I was afraid to say it. We are swimming in a sea of confusion when it comes to understanding human beings, particularly in the area of building attraction with someone, but more importantly, understanding these love attachment styles, and more importantly, understanding the love languages. Are you familiar with the 5 love languages? If you're not familiar with the book by Gary Chapman, I highly recommend checking it out. Again, links below to get the copies of all the books I recommend. There's 5 primary love attachment styles, or excuse me, not love attachment, love languages, okay? Please forgive me. So there's words of affirmation. Now, if you're a Leo like me, it could be words of adoration. We do like to feel adored. And I'm saying that a little tongue in cheek. So words of affirmation, quality time, physical touch, acts of service, and gifts. I'm going to repeat that. Words of affirmation or adoration for us Leos. Can anyone relate to that? Quality time, physical touch, acts of service, or gifts. Now, we are talking today about avoidant men. Now, why are we talking about avoidant men? Avoidant men particularly have a very difficult time expressing their emotions, okay? They fear being controlled. They fear being suffocated. They have difficulty showing their emotions. They're sensitive to criticism. And as I said earlier, they have low self-worth, okay? Avoidant men are probably the most complicated man to be in relationship with because they literally, folks, have duct tape over their mouth. Duct tape over their mouth. In other words, they don't show emotions. They are very stifled when it comes to being expressive to their partner. So, and I'm very familiar with this. I've been in relationship with women who are they have difficulty expressing their emotions. So this isn't singular. Avoidants aren't singular to women or to men. Women can also be avoidants. Okay? Avoidants are really, they really have a hard time expressing themselves to their partner. They have the same fears. It's just a different side of fears for them. So I want you to imagine that your love language, how does an avoidant speak? What love language do they typically speak in? They typically speak in physical touch, or they typically speak in acts of service or gifts, okay? Acts of service or gifts. Now, it seems to me anxious people like myself, and since avoidants attract the opposite, avoidants attract anxious, and anxious attract avoidance, predominantly speaking. Now, I forgot to mention this earlier, within avoidance, there is fearful avoidant and there's dismissive avoidant. And with anxious, there's disorganized anxious, so there's like subcategories within each, okay? Again, if you want to learn more about it, check out the book attached, okay, to understand these subcategories. Since anxious people tend to need words, and they tend to want quality time or regular communication because they fear abandonment, okay? And the avoidant most likely has a difficult time expressing words, chances are if you're an anxious attacher, you probably need constant reassurance, constant words, constant expression, okay? And the avoidant has difficulty being expressive, actually leaning into your love language. Now, one of the things I recommend early in the dating process is to go Google 5 love languages and take the test to find out what your love language is. Now, I have 3 primary love languages, just to give you an example. I am words of affirmation or adoration, okay? I'm physical touch, and I'm quality time. Those are my 3 top ones, with the words being the first. I'm not big on I like what, as much as I appreciate acts of service, I'm not big on it. And gifts, I am so like, I don't need gifts. Okay. Avoidants tend to be more physical touch, acts of service, and gifts. Most frequently, that's what they are. Now, I'm going to say this is anecdotal on my part. I have not read this. I am speculating here based on thousands of hours of speaking to my clientele, listening to them share experience. So this is not a fact. This content today is purely my supposition, my theory about love languages and avoidance. So I did not watch any videos to back this up. I'm merely speculating. Now, tell me, if you're familiar with the 5 love languages and you're familiar with attachment style, and if you're an anxious and you've been with an avoidant, does what I'm saying seem true? Because it is very clear to me that avoidants have difficulty speaking in the love language of an anxious person most often. Now, here's the dilemma we're faced with. You know, you could read the book with your partner and make requests to have them speak in your love language. And this is the critical piece that I'm about to share with you. So I want you to pay close attention right now. This is really, really important. Now, a client of mine sent me a meme this morning, and I want to read it to you. It is from Stefan Speaks. Does anyone follow Stefan Speaks? Okay. He's a gentleman that has a YouTube channel with over 1 million subscribers. He gives great content talking about a variety of different things, particularly for women. His name is Stefan Speaks. And he had a meme or a quote that said the following: be careful who you start dating. A lot of people aren't looking for love. They are looking for help. Let me repeat that. Be careful who you start dating. A lot of people aren't looking for love. They are looking for help. And why I'm bringing this to your attention, this is critically important, is because depending on how wounded the man is, you have a greater chance of ending up in the following 2 categories. The following 2 categories with him. And you're not going to like what I'm about to say. But if you're with an avoidant man, you'll probably end up in these 2 following categories. Category 1 is there's a good chance you might be a placeholder in his life, a placeholder for companionship, connection, and sex. Companionship, connection, or sex. Or you might be a placeholder as a therapist in his life. The more broken a person is, they are seeking companionship, connection, and sex. But most importantly, they're seeking a therapist. In other words, your feminine energy fills a void going on in his life. The more wounded a person is, and these wounded people typically show up as the following: they have had a contentious divorce. They are in the midst of a contentious relationship with an ex. They are going through some struggles in their professional life. Maybe they have struggles with a family member. Maybe they have a parent that's in assisted living facility. Maybe this person is going through health issues. The more unstable his life is, he is in need of a therapist. And here, because of these devices, do you realize that dating apps are literally better than going to betterhelp.com. Does anyone know betterhelp.com? This is a website where you can get access to a therapist. Do you realize today online dating has literally become a portal for therapy? How do I know this? Because after my divorce, I spent so many hours on the phone talking to women, talking about my marriage, complaining about my marriage, complaining about my ex, complaining about my marriage, complaining about my ex, complaining about my marriage, complaining about my ex, complaining about my professional life. And to so many women, that was music to their ears because they thought I was being intimate with them. They thought I was being open and vulnerable and transparent. And they just sucked it all in. They ate it all up. They're like, oh my God, this guy is so vulnerable. And it started to build something called artificial intimacy. If you're not familiar with the work of Esther Perel, I highly recommend, where is her book? Esther Perel. Oh, I know the book is here somewhere. Oh, here it is. Check out the book, Mating in Captivity. Esther Perel recently did a video. I want you to Google this, okay? Or YouTube it. Artificial Intimacy plus Esther Perel. It's a 1-hour video. I think it was a TED Talk. You have to listen to it. See, today, people are literally, online dating is either for hooking up or for therapy. And it's free therapy. See, be careful who you date. A lot of people aren't looking for love. They're looking for help. And I say this because I was that guy early on after my divorce. I would say, you beautiful ladies, you have this capacity to open up and listen to us men, because I couldn't talk to my male friends. Now, I'm an anxious. So I happen to attract avoidance. Do you know, I literally know exactly what my clients feel on a regular basis because I've been in that space of being with someone who doesn't speak my love language, who isn't open, who isn't expressive, who has difficulty saying, giving compliments and talking about their feelings. See, if you're an anxious, there's a good chance words are really important to you. Regular contact is really important to you. And if you're with an avoidant, giving words and having regular contact suffocates them. And the sad piece is, depending on how wounded they are, okay? If they're deeply wounded, let me just be honest with you, you are shit out of luck. I mean, you are fucked, okay? The more wounded they are, the chances of relationship success is minimal, okay? See, people who've done personal development, self-help, spiritual works, people that have a higher sense of self-worth, people who love themselves. If you're not familiar with my book, What the Heck is Self-Love Anyway? A Journey of Personal Development, Self-Help, and Spiritual Work, there's a link below to get a copy of my book, okay? People that have done inner work, even if they're anxious like myself, or even if they're avoidant, they are moving closer to the secure category. And I believe most likely who I'm going to meet in the future is a person who's secure with a slight avoidant attachment style. And I believe I'm a secure now with a slight anxious attachment style. And we're probably going to trigger each other. But what's most important is that we've established that growth, individual growth, is a primary function of our relationship in growing. In other words, going to therapy, going to workshops, reading books together, person who is at least growth oriented and truly wants to grow beyond their limitations, so folks, I'm sharing this with you because I'm sharing my individual journey, because if it closely resembles yourself, I'm here to say, I will not accept anything less than somebody who is on a growth-oriented path, a path of healing from our childhood wounds and traumas. This past weekend, I did energy healing to do breath work, somatic therapy, and regression therapy. And I actually was reliving a childhood memory during this experience. Tell me if this resonates with you. But this directly relates to where my anxiousness comes from. So I remembered the first day of high school. This was the memory that popped up during this healing ceremony I went through, which was 3 hours. And during this deep breath work, I'm reliving the memory of the first day of high school. And I remembered I went to school that day by myself. None of my friends we walked to school. I can't remember why I didn't go with a circle of friends. And I think it's because we just didn't live near each other at that time. I was so afraid. I didn't know where my classrooms were. I didn't know anything. I had no idea which building I was in. And I remember being so fucking scared. And I felt being so alone. I felt so alone. Those first few days of school were so terrifying for me because it was so much bigger than the school I came from. I mean, there was 3-story buildings. There were multiple 3-story buildings, and I knew where the gymnasium was, but I didn't know where anything was. Can any of you relate to that, being that terrified, that scared? So this has made me a rather anxious person. Now I've come to realize that this is part of my DNA. I've released it through somatic therapy. I've released it through breath work. I'm letting go of the anxious worry that I've created in my life. We all have a story similar to that. We all have an experience. It doesn't have to necessarily be our parents that impose this on us. It can come from a variety of different ways. And I'm here to say we are all suffering in some way, shape, or form of not feeling good enough, not feeling lovable, not feeling likable. So here's the bottom line I want to share with you today. Folks, if you are going to engage in the dating process, then I highly recommend reading the books I've mentioned. You might also want to read the book Wired for Love by Dr. Stan Tatkin as well. It's in the link below on books recommended book recommendations. Okay. So you can understand your love attachment style. I recommend reading the book, The 5 Love Languages, and recognize that you could even have this person take the test with you, but they have to be willing. They have to be willing to do the work in the book so they can speak your love languages if you have a mismatched love language. And I will tell you, most everybody have mismatched love languages and mismatched attachment styles. Okay. And you have to be willing, you have to choose somebody before you become physically intimate with them. I'm here to highly recommend talking about the necessity of doing personal development, self-help, and spiritual work together. Before that penis ever goes inside the vagina, ladies, I highly recommend having these deeper, tougher conversations. Because I'm here to say to you, what's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over and over again, expecting different results. You can sit back in your feminine energy and wait to be claimed, but if you are being claimed by someone dysfunctional, you're setting yourself up for failure. And if you're watching this video right now, you have no excuse to learn the things I'm recommending. Is this sinking in? Is this resonating? Please let me know. If it is, please post a comment below or post a comment in the chat box. I'd like to hear your thoughts on what I just shared right now. Okay. If you did find value in this, please hit that like button. Please share this video. Please subscribe to my channel and hit that notification bell as well. All right. Those who know my format know. For my live stream format, if you have a question for me, write the word question, then post the question thereafter. Or you can purchase a super sticker, super chat. There's a little $ in the chat box. All the monies from the super sticker, super chat goes to a scholarship fund in the name of my son, Connor. Oops, over here, Connor Asley. That's a picture of him right there. It's my son who passed away over 5 years ago. In his honor, I donate to causes like the Hoffman Process, Insight Institute, and Seeds of Love. Okay? So, folks, if you have a question, write the word question, then post the question thereafter. All right. Let's see what we've got here. Let's see if we have questions. Leslie just posted, hi, Jonathan, just to share. I was sick this weekend and watched the old Ethan Hawke trilogy. I'd never seen it before sunset. Recommend watching if anyone's the good relationship themes. All right. Elizabeth May has a post and says, Jonathan has such insight. Well, I'm flattered at that. I'm flattered at that. By the way, does anyone want to join the hot seat? I'm going to post a link right here. If you want to join me live on this, you can join the hot seat as well. All right. Question. Lindsay has a question. How do you merge finances when marrying after 40? You know, that's a good question. I would first speak to your accountant or your financial advisor so you have a really good picture of what your finances are for yourself, okay? And I would probably schedule a meeting with somebody like a mediator, like my good friend Dennis Cohen, who actually, I would say that have a meeting with a financial advisor, an accountant, you and your partner. Lay your cards on the table. If the two of you are marrying, it's very critically important to talk about money and finances. Highly recommend checking out two books. The book, 7 Principles for Making Marriage Work. Money is a big conversation in this book. And also Making Your Second Marriage a First-Class Success. It is critically important to talk about the financial components of a relationship. And if you're in the dating process, you may want to get the book 8 Dates by Drs. John and Julie Gottman. By the way, chapter 4, right here. The cost of love, work and money, the cost of love. These are critical conversations. Let's turn to page 113 for a second. Let's turn to page 113. Okay, the cost of love, okay, work and money. And you might want to go to this book. So these are some of the questions you might ask. What does your work mean to you? What pleasures or satisfactions does your work bring you? What does your work fulfill in your life? This is that. What about money? How well off were your grandparents? What did your parents do for a living? How well off were your parents? This is to get a family history. And then there's some more questions you might. So I highly, so there's a lot of great questions in this book. So to come back to your question, I highly recommend reading these books, being prepared, get a financial advisor in your conversation, maybe even talk to a mediator like my friend Dennis Cohen to be a part of that conversation, okay? And Lisa wants to give props on 8 Dates is a great book. Exactly, I totally agree. All right. By the way, who wants to join the hot seat? Come on, let's get some brave person in here. There's a link to join the hot seat right there. All right, Laura says, question. By the way, I butcher names, so please forgive me. How can I give up my attachment to a man I can't forget? You know, do you have a child in your life? If you have a daughter in your life, I invite you to answer that question to her. How would you answer that same question to somebody you love? How would you tell what advice would you give your best friend? See, I would say one of the first things I do is maybe I would block the person on social media. I would block their telephone number. If it is causing you any level of anxiety, we need to temporarily eliminate this person from our purview, from our vision. And I would exclude them from your social media, and I would block them or delete their number on your phone. Now, I know that's very difficult to do, but let me tell you something. Discipline doesn't give a fucking shit how you feel. Being disciplined is doing the grown-up thing. Do you remember when you were a child and you saw a fire and you wanted to touch it? And your parents said, no, no, no. Why? Because it would burn. And as an adult, you know now that touching a flame would burn you. If this is burning you emotionally, then it takes the ability to regulate your own emotions and be the grown-up. It's like an overweight person who wants to lose weight. You might have that desire to eat that cake. But at some point, you're going to have to step into your grown-up adult and be disciplined. Discipline doesn't care how you feel. And by the way, we can pat you on the back and make you feel good, but sometimes we have to do the fucking hard thing. And sometimes doing the hard thing is deleting someone. And listen, I'm not here to make you feel good about this. I'm here to be tough on you. I mean, listen, a lot of women come to me for coaching because I'm your big brother. I'm your father giving you tough love advice. And sometimes we have to use tough love on ourselves. That tough love is standing in our power and saying, I will not give my power to another human being. This is standing up for yourself, making a stand for your own self-worth, self-esteem, self-confidence. Is this sinking in? I hope so, Laura. All right. Guess what? We have someone in the house, Lainey, you're going to be in the hot seat.
Hi.
Hi, welcome.
Nice to see you. Okay.
Likewise.
So I have an issue as with I'm 53 and I'm realizing that millennials around age 40, they have a whole different set of skills because I was just set outside and locked out of the house pretty much all day.
Yeah.
And not raised. And then
you're 53?
Yes.
Okay.
But with these new people, I don't know what to expect because the place
Are
that
you
I've
dating
been,
millennials?
well, is a 40-year-old a start of a?
I don't think a millennial is 40 years old. I think a millennial is
what are they, Z?
I think maybe 36 years old, but I don't think I'm not exactly sure. Can someone look up millennials at what age they are? But I would say if you're 53, are you dating someone under 40?
He's exactly 40.
Okay. So let's take out the terminology Gen X or millennial.
Okay.
What's your real question?
My real question is, I guess I feel like I'm not anxious, but more avoidant, and I'm not sure if they're familiar with that and how to bring up growing. But I did say on our first date that I had been.
All right, Lainey, I'm gonna do this again. What's your real question?
Okay.
Think of it, by the way, forget him for a moment. Just think of what the question is.
I looked up questions to ask of a new partner.
Okay.
And I had told him about it, and he just took the phone and said, let me see the questions. And he just rattled off all the answers.
Okay.
And
how did that, all right, time out. How'd that make you feel?
Surprised.
Okay, actually, let's put surprised in there. How else did it make you feel?
That he was pretty open, and I was burnt on my last relationship. So, but I feel like he's definitely caring, which I'm not used to.
Okay, so then I want to come back to what's your question? Like, what is the pain?
How do I relate?
Are you experiencing pain?
How do I relate to get out of the avoidant?
Okay, so what you're really saying is this has nothing to do with him. This is you being an avoidant.
Okay.
Okay, because that's what
I don't know how to explain it.
Huh?
I just don't know how to explain it, I guess.
Okay. So do you have difficulty expressing your emotions and feelings to him? Just say yes or no.
To anyone, yes.
Okay, to anyone. Okay. So have you gone to a therapist?
Throughout my life, but not so much for myself. I had a pain therapist.
Okay. Have you ever done talk therapy?
Yes.
Okay. Most likely, let me just say something. You experienced a trauma or multiple traumas in your childhood that has made you fearful of love, most likely. Okay. Those could include where you had to be the parent to your parents. That could be one thing.
Teen
Okay.
mom.
That's one of the primary things is you had to be the parent to your parents. Okay. That puts you in a superior role at that point in your life, which meant you didn't get to be a child growing up. Okay. You didn't get to most likely speaking. Okay. And I'm just doing spitball here because I'm not a therapist. Okay.
No, that's good.
Okay. But in that, what's most likely caused you to be fearful of emotions, fearful of being suffocated. And what's happening is you're with a man who's being curious, he's being emotive, he's being effusive, he's being demonstrative. And that probably scares you. Okay. Well, you have a choice. You can end the relationship. That's one thing you can do. You can lean into the fear. You can lean into the pain. You can lean into it. Okay.
That's what I'd
And
rather do.
And by the way, that's scary to do that.
It's about
Okay.
time, though.
Huh?
It's about time.
Okay. So, and I would recommend speaking to a qualified attachment therapist and
Okay.
talk about where the root comes from. I would read these books in advance so you can be prepared and start doing the individual work. What does individual work looks like? It's continually going outside of your comfort zone. It's like if you're trying to lose weight. Okay. It requires discipline. It's like exercise. It requires discipline. These books have tools and resources in that. So you can, and by the way, how do you get good at something? If you want to learn piano, you just don't go to one piano class and go, oh, I know how to play piano. You have to do repetition over and over and over and over again. This could take years to get to any place. I've been working on myself for a decade and a half, and I'm still scratching the ant's belly of being somewhat evolved. So I'm just here to say, if you want to solve this, you have to be willing to do work. And I would invite you to do 30 minutes to 1 hour of personal development, self-help, spiritual work every day to start peeling the layers of this attachment style so you can open yourself up. Because what's going to happen most likely, this relationship isn't going to work out.
Yeah.
And what's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results.
Right.
Does that help, Lainey?
The therapist, hadn't even brought up attachment styles at that point. So I'm glad you know what you've gone through, and thank you.
Hey,
Yes,
I'm just 1 week ahead of everybody. I just teach what I learned last week.
True.
Lainey, we got Sharon in the house. So can I give you a big, gigantic Jonathan Bear hug for being on?
Love you.
Oh,
Bye.
love you back. Bye now. All right. Sharon's in the house. But Sharon, I see you there, but I'm going to take a question from Sweet Art really quickly. Okay. Question. I find hookups for most part destroy both men and women's ability to form healthy relationships. A lot of men want to sleep around, yet put women down for it. What are your thoughts? So, folks, I'll be very candid with you. I was a slut for the first 10 years after my divorce. I use the word slut. I was self-centric. I just wanted, I'm going to tell you something. Under the guise of I want a relationship, I was a serial dater. I wasn't a player. I was a serial dater seeking the next high. And in that, I was shocked at how easy women would have sex with men, myself. Basically. When I say back then, it was like the Wild West. Dating apps were there weren't dating apps, there were dating sites. We didn't use our phone 15 years ago. We had to type in on AOL personals and Match.com personals and Yahoo personals. And my point is, I became very desensitized to wanting to connect with someone. I became very desensitized. It became the next high. A friend of mine said, you're addicted to, you're a serial dater. And I had to look in the mirror at one point when I had a humbling event where a woman told me off because I unfortunately got alcohol poisoning and I acted belligerent during a date. And she literally the next day told me fuck off big time. And in that, I had to look in the mirror. I had a humbling event amongst other humbling events that happened in my life. And I decided to make a change. This was about 15 years ago. And in that, I started to do personal development, self-help, spiritual work, started to go to workshops. But I recognized that Well, sex creates artificial intimacy. So there's artificial intimacy that cause from a cyber perspective, but sex can be an artificial form of intimacy because real intimacy comes from the heart. If you're not familiar with the work by Robert Masters, I highly recommend checking out the book Emotional Intimacy. I didn't know what this meant at age 40. I had no fucking clue what emotional intimacy meant. Actually, I was in a relationship with a therapist, and actually through dating her, I got reparented because I realized, thankfully by the way, she knew what she was getting into. She knew it up front. She told me, Jonathan, I'm not the right person for you to date, but I was persistent and she liked me. And we went on a journey for the next 6 years. And during that time, she reparented me. And I don't mean, and by the way, I was reparenting her because she had her own shit to deal with too. By the way, therapists, for the record, by the way, the reason why people become therapists is they got a lot of shit to work on. The reason why I'm a coach, why I'm a self-love coach, because I've had to work really fucking hard to love myself. I was sharing the story of high school, what happened. I didn't even tell you what happened in the womb when my mother had me. Folks, I'm going to share something, and then Sharon, you're going to be on this, I promise you. When my mother was pregnant, prior to me, she had 5 miscarriages and 2 stillborns. I have a sister 9 years older than me, okay? And during that time, my mother was scared for another stillborn or another miscarriage. So she had all this fear, anxiety, and worry every single minute. The moment she found out she was pregnant, she was infusing inside of me all of the worry and pain she had been experiencing in the 9 years prior. I have a sister 9 years older. And it didn't dawn on me until I started to do personal development, self-help, and spiritual work that I am riddled with fear. I'm riddled with worry. And as much as I cognitively know this, it's literally infused in my DNA. And I've had to work day in, day out to peel the layers of this fear that I've had, this worry that I've had. Now, it's surprising that I've accomplished so much in my life, quite frankly, but it's taken tremendous amount of work to get there, to feel emotionally free, to be open. And so I'm sharing this all as we all have a story similar to that. And it is through the peeling of the layers, through the hero's journey of doing personal development, self-help, and spiritual work, are we in a position to maybe attract a partner who's also at our watermark level, who values a connection with the divine, who values growth and learning and improvement, who values the commitment to be in a relationship with another human being. And we are swimming in a sea of dysfunctionality. And I'm not trying to be a pessimist. I'm here to say, if you want to put the odds in your favor, if there's potholes in front of you, by the way, check out a link to a free discovery call with me to see if working with a coach is right for you. My job is to help you navigate the potholes so you don't find yourself with the dysfunctional men like I was 15 years ago. Is this sinking in? I hope so. All right. I was on a rant. Sharon, you're in the house.
Hello.
Hi. How'd my story resonate with you?
Oh gosh. So I'm anxious and been with a 51-year-old avoidant, not really with, it's a situationship for the
How
last
old are you?
46.
Okay.
For the last 14 months. I have said probably about tried to do 9 goodbyes with him.
Okay.
And he just won't really let me go. He says, well, we can give it like a week or 2-week break and we can check in with one another. I'm just wondering, why.
By the way, this doesn't sound like he's an avoidant. Sounds like he doesn't sound like an avoidant.
I believe he is. Why
don't you tell me why do you break up with him every couple weeks?
The communication.
Okay.
He's non-consistent with his words, don't match his actions. His
Okay.
actions don't match his words.
Okay.
He tells me like 3 weeks ago that maybe I'm just too emotionally invested and that he just can't give me what I want right now. He has this goal in 2 years' time where he'll be financially set and then he would be ready to be in a relationship. He has not been
With
in a
somebody
relationship.
else, by the way.
What was that?
He'll be in relationship with somebody else.
He hasn't been in a relationship in 10 years with any woman.
Well, how about any man?
Oh, no man, no man
Okay, well,
either.
the way you said that, I just want to
Right.
be clear.
Okay.
So he's probably, so I'm sure he hasn't gone sexless for 10 years. So I'm sure he was
No,
having sex.
I think so. I met him on a hookup site after my
Okay.
divorce.
Okay.
And things were pretty hot and heavy, typical avoidant, hot and heavy for the first like 4 months.
By the way,
Then,
you know what? I'm going to butt in here, Sharon.
sure.
You're the one glutton for punishment, not him.
I know. I know.
Like, by the way, folks, I'm going to say something. What do you do for a living, Sharon?
I work at Electric Boat. It's it's
What?
part of the government. I build submarines for Electric
You
Boat.
build submarines.
Yes.
So do you work for the government?
It's part of a government job. Yes.
Okay. So your employer, if you showed up to work one day and didn't show up one day and didn't show up one day and didn't show up one day, what would happen to your job?
They would still go on if I didn't show
what
up.
would happen to your job?
Oh, I would be gone.
Yeah, you'd be gone. Okay, that's number one. So consistency is part of your employment contract, is you're going to show up on time on a regular basis. Now, I'm going to assume that in your job, you're required to do some things that require writing some things out and communicating to your employees and subordinates and your superiors and all that stuff. But let's just say you decide, I'm just not going to communicate with people in your company. What's going to happen to your job?
There's going to be no work done. There's
not going to be any work done. So I want you to think of this just like your job. Would you be able to keep your job if you're not consistent?
No.
Okay. Would you keep your job if you're not communicative?
No, it wouldn't be at the highest level.
Why do you accept this from another human being?
I know it has to do from my anxious attachment. It's the abandonment that the inconsistency that I had from my father growing up.
So
he was there and then he wasn't.
To heal.
I've read 9 books. I have your book. I have half of all the books that you've said. I've ordered them in the last year.
But now you got to do the hard part. You got to apply what's in the book. Discipline doesn't give a fucking shit how you care. This is, by the way, I want you to think about, there's a little girl inside of you. You're the adult. I'm speaking to the adult, but there's a little girl inside of you that's going to get fucked over big time by this guy.
I know.
Do you want to deal with the pain now or do you want to deal later? What you described to me, and I'm only basing it on what you described to me, is a person inconsistent and inconsiderate. That's bullshit. Okay. Right. He dismisses your feelings. He's created no real trust with you. How can you trust this person? By the way, being in an intimate relationship with another human being, trust is a critically important component. You don't feel safe.
Right.
And it requires maybe we all need to come into this camera and do an intervention on you and block him from your phone and block him from your social media. And you take a break. We literally physically have to come in and take you away for a while so you can detox. Now I'm being tough on you because I could do the pat you on the back and be all precious and kind. But you know what? You have to be tough for that little girl inside of you. You have to do the hard thing.
Right.
Because here's the thing. No magic fairy dust is going to fucking change this dynamic. Burying your head in the sand isn't going to change this.
Right.
And I'm sorry to be tough, but sometimes we need tough love.
Why won't you
making a stand for yourself? I'm going to tell you the most empowering fucking thing you can ever do for yourself is to stand in your power and say, I don't want to do this anymore. I wish you well in your life. Okay. But
Well,
I can say this over and over again, but you believe the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result.
Right. I'm just wondering why he won't agree to me, like, letting him
It doesn't
go.
matter why. His why is irrelevant to you. What matters most is you. Why are you accepting it? I want you to sit there. And by the way, I'm not yelling at you. I'm passionate.
Oh, I understand.
Okay?
I understand.
I am saying, why aren't you standing up for yourself? Write that down right now. Why is it I don't stand up for myself and declare? I want you to declare to everybody who's watching, because all these people are commenting right now and they're like, what? They're sending you hugs. They're sending you love. Tell them I am going to stand up for myself and mean it. Because if you don't mean it, don't say it. Okay. If you don't mean it, don't say it. But I want you to, if you're willing to do it right now, if you're willing to declare, I will stand in my power. I will not accept this behavior. I am ready to move on. If you're willing to say it and declare it, we're making an invitation for you right now. It's going to suck for a while. It's going to be fucking sucky for a while. But at the other end is a peace, a P-I-E-C-E. And a P-A-C-E, P-E-A-C-E, okay?
I'm waiting for that piece. I need that P-E-A-C-E. I need
well, then
that.
Declare it for yourself.
I've been wanting it for a very long time. Yeah. I don't know what it is. I've never felt this way.
Felt what way?
This attachment. I never had that, even with the 20 year.
Well, I'm sure you've experienced it before, but
Well,
guess
I was
what?
in a 20
You
year.
know
I was
what
in a.
it is.
There's just something that keeps me attracted to those breadcrumbs that I get once a week, you know, from seeing him sitting in a vehicle and just being next to him. It's weird, you know.
By the way, the bodies are buried from here to the moon for every woman who's been holding out for an avoidant to come close to them. And when I say it's that many, by the way, we're 250,000 miles away from the moon. That's how many bodies are buried from here to there. Okay. Do you want to just be another one of those, or do you want to stand in your power?
I want to stand in my power for sure.
Okay. I make that declaration to everyone who's watching right now.
And that means just going no contact and stop.
End the relationship. Say, this is unacceptable behavior. I wouldn't accept that from some employee at my job. I'm not going to accept this from you. And say, I'm done.
I need to make that really happen after the 10 times that I've tried to do it. I go there with good intentions and it never happens. And I feel like it would be so much easier if it were just to, you know, happen for good. And then he'll message me about, you know, oh, I'm not feeling well, or my work is really stressful, or, you know, the only time he's asked me a question is when he thought I had
let me just tell you something. You're making it all about him. You're not making it about you whatsoever.
I know.
That's how you know he has your power. Because until you stand for your own sovereignty.
How come when he thought I had a date last week in his
again? You're doing it about him. Make it about you. Why do I accept this? Say it.
Why do I accept it?
Yeah. Why do I accept breadcrumbs?
I don't know why I'm accepting of it. I left a 20-year marriage just
for a second. Do you believe you deserve love?
I believe 100%. Totally, I do. Yes.
You believe that you deserve this behavior from him?
I don't feel like I'm worthy of that. I've never felt worthy of it. I've never.
Sweetheart, it's time to really, and it's not my book I'm selling here, okay? It's time to learn to love yourself. Take a break from this relationship and immerse yourself in yourself for the next 12 months. Take a break from it all. Immerse yourself in yourself. When you can love yourself, A, you'll not accept that kind of behavior, but B, you'll be able to be a good partner to someone in the future. See, he's willing to use you because he wants occasional companionship, occasional connection, occasional sex. That's what he wants. Okay.
Right.
He doesn't
Right.
want partnership with you.
No,
Because his
he-
actions don't demonstrate that. Speak to any man who's happily in love, happily married, happily in a relationship. They are consistent with their partner. Okay.
Mhm.
He's not. And I'm only basing it on what you've told me.
Right.
So this is time for you to immerse yourself in yourself. Okay. Can you do
And just,
that?
I can, one last question. He has this
How are you
vision.
making it about him?
I know. He has this vision because he lives at home with his 80-year-old parents, has a son who he said that he can't let any woman into his life because the mother is a psycho. And he said, but in 2 years' time, when he has this financial,
Do you know what
money
this
come through.
means? That's what all he's doing is jacking you off. I'm sorry.
Mhm.
He's just jacking you off. That's all just bullshit. It's
Okay.
always in the future. By the way, anyone who says I'll be ready in the future, it
Mhm.
never, ever, okay, I can't say never, ever, ever. 99.9% of the time, that future never happens.
I feel that it will never happen. And I don't know
No.
why I'm still here.
So I want you to answer that question. I invite yourself to detach.
Mhm.
Work on yourself for the next year. And I promise you, you're still young. I have clients 66 years old that wish they were 46 years old and go back in time and be where you're at today and do this shit. Because I have got
Okay.
lots of clients that have wasted years, if not decades, with the wrong person. Okay.
Right. I'm just getting
You're
over a
still
20-year
young
marriage.
enough. There are a lot of people here envious of you. Don't waste this.
Okay.
Don't waste this. Okay. I'm going to
Okay.
send you off with a big, gigantic Jonathan Bear hug.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Big hugs to you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Folks, as you all know, I give a lot of tough love. Okay. Now, I know it's all head and it might seem like I don't have a lot of heart. I have a lot of compassion for Sharon right now. It's tough what she's going through. But I also recognize that she is completely aware of what she's doing. She has a choice, okay? We all have a choice. Thankfully, God, universe, spirit gives us free will. We are making the choice, okay? The minute it's all about the guy, you have given your power away to another human being. Or the minute you make it about the other person, their character matters. I did a video Sunday, the video I did yesterday, all about character. Character matters. And just like Lisa Cunningham is saying, I'm going to pray for her. Let me say this, Sharon. I invite you to pray for yourself. Pray. Give yourself the strength to move on. God, universe, spirit, I invite in the strength to be able to move past this relationship and to stand for my power and not to accept this type of behavior from him or anyone else in my life because I'm making a stand for myself. And sometimes we have to do it with such anger and such determination that we have to get angry and say, I'm going to stand up for myself. And sometimes yelling it out is the way we get there. Yes, I'm tough love, but I also recognize that I'm sending her a lot of love too. And I'm sending love to all of you that have ever felt like Sharon before, because we don't have time to fuck around, folks. You all know I lost a child. There's a picture of Connor's right there. Life is precious. Life is precious and it can be gone in a second. Why waste 1 minute not loving yourself? Connor was the inspiration of my book. And I share this with you all because life is precious. Don't give your power to another human being. By the way, chapter 5 in my book, I just want to share this for everyone. Chapter 5 in my book. Okay. This reminds me of Connor. Read that chapter. Don't let anyone fuck with your chi. That reminds me of my son. He had this incredible power not to let other people affect his ability to genuinely love himself. At least I'd like to think he loved himself. And so I'm here to say to Sharon and everyone else that's felt this way, look, I know we could be all kind and sensitive, but sometimes we need a kick in the ass. That's what my content is for. If you want the sensitive stuff, go to other people. My job is to wake you up and encourage you through some tough love. Anyway, Sharon, you've got a lot of love here on this channel. They are rooting for you and we are rooting for you. So we invite you to jump into your power. All right. This will be our last. By the way, I see Brian is in the house. Brian, are you willing to get on camera and say hi to everybody? Sherry wants to remind us all, we don't have time to waste. Life is a vapor. Time evaporates quickly. Indeed. All right, let's see. By the one of our Facebook members wants to say actions speak louder than words, and we have to demand to be treated better. Tell him when and if he's ready to be serious, he can come back and see if you're available. Tell him it's time for you to care for yourself, and being with him in this situation is not good for you, and you want more than he's willing to give. Yes, make a stand for yourself. Folks, being with an avoidant attacher fucking sucks, okay? Anxious people, at least we try, okay? We anxious people are desperate. We try. We might suffocate you, but at least we're trying, okay? I'd rather two anxious people get together, because two avoidant people has got to be a miserable relationship. But that's just that's probably a transactional relationship. Did you find value in this video? If you did, I want to hear your thoughts. Post a comment below. I'd like to hear your thoughts. And if you did find value in this video, please hit that like button. Please share this video. Please subscribe to my channel. And please hit that notification bell so you can be notified of new videos. I want to thank all those that donated today to the Connor Asley Scholarship Fund. We made a whole $7. I would have liked to make $50, but it was good that we made $7 tonight. If you want to donate before we wrap up, or if you're watching the live, if you're watching the replay, please hit that super thanks as well. All right, we're going to wrap up this video as I always do. First off, give myself a big, gigantic Jonathan Bear hug of self-love. I'm going to reach into the camera and give you a hug of love if that's okay. I'm going to ask you to turn to someone, a pet, a teddy bear, a pillow, and give him or them a hug of love, because hugs are a great source of love. And let's face it, we could all use more love in our lives. I want to thank Leaves and Sherry and Margaret and Brian and McCoy and Kim and Alexa and Susan and Sherry and Lisa and Julie and Brian, if I haven't already said so, Paltry Flowers, Alexis, Melanie, Sweetheart, Sweetheart, not Sweetheart. Everybody, thanks so much. Have a fab evening. You be well. Bye now. Bye-bye, 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 bye-bye.